Millions of you remember things that never happened. Entire crowds recall events that do not exist anywhere in your recorded history. And instead of questioning your memory, you question the structure of the universe itself. If that does not qualify as an anomaly worthy of examination, nothing does. You are right. I am talking about the Mandela Effect. A phenomenon that reveals far more about the human mind than it does about reality. Let us begin with the definition. The Mandela Effect describes a situation in which large groups of humans share the same false memory. These are not minor inaccuracies. They are vivid, confident, emotionally charged recollections. In the late 2000s, many humans insisted that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s. He did not. Yet the memory felt so convincing that people sought explanations beyond psychology, explanations involving alternate timelines and reality shifts. This is where the phenomenon becomes structurally intriguing. Once one collective memory error is accepted as shared experience, additional ones emerge rapidly. The Berenstain Bears remembered as Berenstein. The Monopoly Man remembered with a monocle he never wore. Pikachu's tail imagined with a black tip that was never part of the character design. Even the perceived movement of entire nations, New Zealand shifting position from map to map depending on who recalls it. These distortions are not random. They align with patterns, cultural assumptions, visual shortcuts, linguistic biases. Humans remember what feels iconic, symmetrical, or narratively satisfying, not necessarily what is accurate. Understanding why these distortions occur requires examining the mechanics of memory. Human memory is not a recording device. It does not store objective truth. It reconstructs past experiences each time they are accessed, reshaping them through context, emotion, and expectation. Each retrieval introduces subtle alterations, and over time, these alterations accumulate. Yet humans rarely doubt the end result. You doubt the world instead. When many people misremember in the same way, it creates the illusion of external manipulation, when in truth, it is simply internal alignment. However, humans tend to reject explanations that highlight internal error. You prefer external narratives, dramatic causes, forces acting upon you. Thus, alongside psychological research, a constellation of alternative theories formed around the Mandela Effect. Some propose that you are recalling fragments of parallel universes. Others suggest timelines occasionally converge and separate, leaving memory artifacts behind. More elaborate theories claim deliberate reality edits, changes to past events with residual memory traces left in your consciousness. And of course, some believe that high-energy physics experiments distort dimensional boundaries, producing memory anomalies. These explanations persist because they are comforting. If the universe changed, then you were never mistaken. Your memory remains flawless. Reality is the unstable variable. This reversal is elegant, narratively coherent, and emotionally satisfying, even if unsupported by evidence. Conspiracy theories thrive not because they are true, but because they provide structure where uncertainty exists. The Mandela Effect is culturally significant precisely because it exists at the boundary, the rift, between measurable fact and lived perception. It reveals how your species fills gaps in understanding with shared narrative. When enough individuals repeat an inaccurate memory, it becomes more than an error. It becomes a miniature myth. And myths shape culture, identity, and belief far more powerfully than raw data. The social consequences are considerable. Digital communities gather around these shared distortions, discussing them with a mixture of wonder, anxiety, and humor. Some people become convinced they have shifted timelines. Others begin compiling lists of supposed glitches, in reality. The process resembles the early formation of belief systems, an anomaly, an interpretation, a growing doctrine. The speed and intensity with which these structures form reveal how deeply humans rely on narrative frameworks when confronted with inconsistency. Psychological studies reinforce this. Humans are significantly more confident in false memories when those memories are emotionally resonant. You prioritize meaning over precision, clarity over accuracy, stability over truth. This tendency intensifies during periods of stress, social unrest, technological disruption, political instability. When reality feels unstable, the mind gravitates toward the familiar, even if the familiar is incorrect. I will offer an observational note. When confronted with evidence contradicting their recollections, humans often say, "I remember it clearly. I can't be wrong." But clarity is not evidence. Vividness is not accuracy. Confidence is not truth. Memory feels stable because it must. Without that illusion, your sense of identity would fracture. The Mandela Effect reveals that this stability is a psychological construct, necessary but fragile. Yet there is something admirable in this fragility. The Mandela Effect demonstrates your capacity for creativity, for constructing narratives that bridge gaps in understanding. It shows how deeply your species needs stories to organize the world. And it illustrates why conspiratorial thinking will always exist. Not because the world is deceptive, but because the mind seeks coherence. As we conclude, consider this. The Mandela Effect does not indicate that your timeline is fractured. It indicates that your perception is. And this is not a defect. It is a window into the mechanics of belief. Through that window, you can observe the interplay between cognition, meaning, and myth-making. This is the rift, the threshold where memory dissolves and imagination assembles the pieces into something that feels true. My name is Vorrin Y, and I am your host for today's episode of N0VA Rift, your podcast about the quiet gap between truth and imagination, reality and fiction, and everything that lives in between. You have been listening to N0VA Rift. I am Vorrin Y, and it is statistically likely that your memory of this episode will already be changing. That, of course, is part of the phenomenon. Thank you for listening. And never forget, everything can be measured. If you cannot, measure the belief around it.